The air in the banquet hall felt heavy, thick with the scent of expensive wine and my mother's perfume. I sat at the far corner of the table, watching my sister Vanessa hold court like she always did, her diamond engagement ring catching the light every time she gestured. Our parents flanked her like proud peacocks, my father's hand resting possessively on the back of her chair. "Tell them about the venue, darling," my mother cooed, practically vibrating with excitement. Vanessa's smile was radiant. The Fairmont Royal York. Marcus's father secured the grand ballroom. "It's going to be absolutely spectacular." Marcus Chen, my father announced to the table of extended family, his chest puffed out. Senior partner at one of Toronto's most prestigious law firms. His father sits on the board of 3 major corporations. I picked at my salmon, trying to make myself smaller. I'd learned years ago that family dinners weren't really about family. They were about performance, about who had achieved what, about bragging rights my parents could cash in at their country club. "And what about you, Jordan?" my Aunt Patricia asked, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "What is it you do again?" The table went quiet. I could feel everyone's eyes on me. "I'm an aerospace engineer," I said quietly. "I work on satellite systems." My father made a dismissive sound in his throat. "She tinkers with machines in some warehouse in Mississauga. Not exactly glamorous, is it?" "Dad, I design navigation systems for communications satellites. I'm currently leading the project for..." "See?" He cut me off, addressing the table. "Always so defensive. Can't just have a normal conversation." My mother reached across the table to squeeze Vanessa's hand. "At least one of our daughters understands the importance of a good marriage." Vanessa worked so hard to meet the right kind of people, to present herself properly. That's what matters in this world. "Meeting Marcus was the best thing that ever happened to me," Vanessa agreed, not looking at me. "You know what they say. It's not just what you know, it's who you know." My cousin Bradley laughed. "Well, Jordan, maybe you'll meet a nice engineer at your warehouse, someone on your level." The table erupted in polite laughter. I felt something crack inside my chest, but I kept my face neutral. I'd had 28 years of practice. "Actually," I said carefully, "I was recently promoted to senior systems architect. I'm the youngest person in the company, too." "That's wonderful, dear," my mother interrupted, her voice bright and empty. "Now, Vanessa, show everyone the wedding invitations." They just arrived from the printer. I watched as glossy cream cardstock was passed around the table, everyone cooing over the embossed gold lettering. I didn't need to see one. I already knew I wouldn't be getting one. Later, as the dinner was winding down and people were having coffee and dessert, Vanessa pulled me aside into the hotel corridor. "We need to talk," she said, her voice low. I crossed my arms. "About?" "The wedding." She wouldn't meet my eyes. Marcus's family is very particular about appearances. They're very traditional, very conscious of image. Okay? His parents are hosting a dinner next week. The rehearsal dinner, technically, though the actual rehearsal will be the day before the wedding. It's going to be at Canoe. Very upscale, very exclusive. All of Marcus's family will be there, plus business associates, influential people. I waited. "The thing is..." Vanessa twisted her engagement ring around her finger. "They're going to ask questions about our family, about what everyone does. And I just think it might be better if you didn't attend. The wedding, I mean. Or the rehearsal dinner." I stared at her. "You're uninviting me from your wedding." "Don't be dramatic. I'm just saying it might be easier for everyone if you were busy that weekend. You could say you have a work commitment or something. I'll make sure you get photos." "Easier for who, Vanessa?" "Easier for you because you're embarrassed by what I do?" Her face flushed. "I'm not embarrassed. I'm being practical. Marcus's father is very traditional. He believes in certain standards, certain expectations. When they ask what my sister does, and I have to say, you work in some industrial facility building satellite parts. Designing. I design satellite systems. There's a difference. See? This is exactly what I mean. You're so defensive about everything. You can't just accept that some careers are more presentable than others. Marcus is a lawyer. His brother is a surgeon. His sister married a guy who owns a chain of luxury car dealerships. What am I supposed to say when they ask about you? I felt something shift inside me. Something cold and final. You could say I'm an aerospace engineer who's currently working on the navigation system for Canada's next generation of communication satellites. You could say I have a master's degree from the University of Waterloo, and I've published 3 papers on satellite orbital mechanics. You could say I'm actually pretty damn good at what I do. Vanessa's expression hardened. I could say all of that, but it doesn't change the fact that you work in a warehouse, and you're not married, and you don't exactly fit with the image Marcus's family expects. This is the most important day of my life, Jordan. For once, can you not make it about you? She walked away before I could respond, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. I stood there for a long moment, then pulled out my phone and texted the only person I knew would understand. Family dinner from hell. Call you when I get home. Dr. Sarah Mackenzie had been my roommate at Waterloo. She'd gone on to do her PhD in astrophysics while I'd gone into industry. We'd stayed close, even after she'd moved to Vancouver for a postdoc, and I'd stayed in Toronto. She was the kind of friend who answered texts at 2 in the morning and never made you feel small. I drove home to my apartment in Liberty Village, a modest 1-bedroom that I'd bought 2 years ago with my first big bonus. My parents had been horrified. Why would you buy in that neighborhood? It's all young people and startups. You should have waited, bought something in Forest Hill when you could afford it. But I loved my apartment. I loved the floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the city, the exposed brick, the fact that it was mine and I'd earned it. I was halfway through a cup of tea when my phone rang. "Sarah, tell me everything," she said without preamble. I told her. The dinner, my father's comments, Vanessa's conversation in the hallway. Sarah listened without interrupting, which was one of the things I valued most about her. When I finished, there was a long pause. "She uninvited you from her own wedding," Sarah said finally, her voice flat with disbelief. "Yep. Because you're an aerospace engineer. Because I work in a warehouse, apparently. Because I'm not married. Because I'm an embarrassment to the family image. Jordan, you literally design systems that help satellites stay in orbit. You're working on technology that's going to provide internet access to remote communities across northern Canada. You're doing actual, meaningful work that's going to help people. Yeah, but I don't wear designer suits to office parties. So clearly I'm a failure." Sarah made a frustrated sound. "Your family is insane. You know that, right?" I'm starting to get the picture. "Are you okay?" I thought about it. Honestly, I think I'm done. I've spent my whole life trying to get them to see me, to value what I do. And they just don't. They never will. Vanessa's probably right. It would be easier for everyone if I just wasn't there. Don't say that. I'm serious. Why should I show up to support someone who's ashamed of me? Why should I keep subjecting myself to their judgment? Because you're better than they are, Sarah said firmly. Because you've worked your ass off to get where you are, and you don't need their validation. But I get it. If you want to skip the wedding, skip it. You don't owe them anything. We talked for another hour, about work and life, and everything except my family. When I finally hung up, I felt lighter somehow. Clearer. I decided I wouldn't go to the wedding. I'd send a gift, something appropriately expensive and impersonal. I'd be busy that weekend. I had actual work to do anyway. The satellite project I was leading was entering a critical phase. We were designing the navigation system for a constellation of satellites that would provide broadband internet to remote and northern communities across Canada. It was technically complex, politically important, and absolutely fascinating. I'd been working 80-hour weeks for the past 3 months. 3 days after the family dinner, I was at my desk at 7 in the morning, reviewing telemetry data from our test satellites, when my phone buzzed with a call from an unknown Toronto number. "Jordan Reeves," I answered absently, still focused on my screen. "Miss Reeves, this is Diana Chen. I'm Marcus Chen's mother." I sat up straight. "Oh, hello, Mrs. Chen. I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time. I got your number from Vanessa. I wanted to reach out to you personally about the rehearsal dinner next Friday." Here it comes, I thought. She's calling to make sure I got the message about not attending. I understand there may have been some confusion about the guest list, Mrs. Chen continued, her voice carefully neutral. But I wanted to clarify that we absolutely expect you to be there. In fact, I was hoping we could seat you at the head table, with the family. I blinked. I'm sorry? The rehearsal dinner is at Canoe, 7 o'clock. I'll have a place card made for you. We're very much looking forward to meeting you properly. Mrs. Chen, I think there might be some confusion. Vanessa mentioned that it would be better if I know what Vanessa mentioned, Mrs. Chen interrupted gently, and I've had a conversation with her about it. You're her sister. And you'll be at the rehearsal dinner. No discussion. I didn't know what to say. I actually have a particular reason for wanting to meet you, she continued. My brother-in-law, James Morrison, is the CEO of Orion Technologies. I believe you're familiar with the company? My heart skipped. Orion Technologies was one of the largest aerospace contractors in Canada, currently bidding on several government satellite contracts. Yes, I'm familiar, I managed. James mentioned your company is working on the Northern Connect satellite project. He's been very impressed with the technical proposals he's seen. When Vanessa mentioned you worked in aerospace engineering, I made the connection. You're leading the navigation systems team, aren't you? I am. Then, I'm even more insistent that you attend dinner. James will be there, and I know he'd love to discuss the project with you. He's quite passionate about the work you're doing. After we hung up, I sat staring at my phone for a full minute. Then I called Sarah. Plot twist, I said when she answered. Marcus's mother just invited me to the rehearsal dinner. Apparently, his uncle is the CEO of Orion Technologies and wants to talk to me about my work. Sarah let out a low whistle. Oh, this is going to be good. Please tell me you're going. I don't know. Vanessa is going to be furious. Exactly. You have to go. Jordan, this is the universe literally handing you validation on a silver platter. Marcus's family wants you there. They're interested in your work. Meanwhile, your own family has spent years telling you you're not good enough. You have to go. She was right. I knew she was right. Fine, I said. I'm going. But I'm buying a new dress. If I'm going to do this, I'm doing it properly. The following Friday, I left work at 5, which was practically unheard of for me lately. I'd bought a dress from Holt Renfrew, a sleek navy blue number that made me feel professional and confident. I'd had my hair done. I'd even splurged on new shoes. When I walked into Canoe, the hostess led me to a private dining room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The room was already half full with well-dressed people holding champagne glasses and making small talk. I spotted my family immediately. My parents were talking to an older couple I didn't recognize. Vanessa was with Marcus, her hand on his arm, her smile bright and perfect. Her smile faltered when she saw me. I watched her excuse herself and make her way over, Marcus following behind her. Jordan, she said, her voice tight. What are you doing here? I was invited, I said calmly. Mrs. Chen called me herself. Vanessa's face went pale. I specifically told you. Vanessa, Marcus interrupted gently, putting a hand on her shoulder. My mother invited Jordan. She's family. She should be here. But I explained to your mother about Jordan's situation, Vanessa hissed, low enough that only we could hear. About her job. About the fact that she's an aerospace engineer working on a project my uncle's company is trying to partner on? Marcus's voice was mild, but there was an edge to it. Yes, my mother mentioned that. She seemed quite impressed, actually. Vanessa looked between us, her expression confused and slightly panicked. Before she could respond, a tall woman in an elegant black dress approached. You must be Jordan, she said warmly, extending her hand. I'm Diana Chen. We spoke on the phone. I'm so glad you could make it. Thank you for inviting me, Mrs. Chen. Please, call me Diana. Come, I want to introduce you to my brother-in-law. James has been looking forward to meeting you all week. She guided me away from Vanessa, across the room to where a distinguished-looking man in his 60s was talking to a small group. James, this is Jordan Reeves, the engineer I told you about. James Morrison's face lit up. Miss Reeves, excellent. I've been wanting to talk to you. Your work on the Northern Connect navigation system is exceptional. I've reviewed your technical papers on orbital mechanics and collision avoidance. Brilliant stuff. I felt my cheeks warm. Thank you, sir. That's very kind. Not kind, just honest. Tell me, have you given any thought to the long-term trajectory of the project? I know the first phase is focused on launching the initial constellation, but what about expansion? What about integration with existing infrastructure? We fell into conversation easily, talking about satellite systems, orbital mechanics, the challenges of providing connectivity to remote areas. James was sharp and knowledgeable, asking detailed technical questions that showed he really understood the work. I was so engrossed in the conversation that I didn't notice the room had gone quiet until James paused mid-sentence and looked over my shoulder. "Ah, there you are," he said. "Jordan, I don't think you've met my wife, Catherine." I turned to find an elegant woman with silver hair and kind eyes smiling at me. "It's lovely to meet you, dear. James has been talking about your work non-stop for the past week." I was starting to get jealous. Everyone laughed, and the moment passed, but I caught sight of my parents across the room. My father was staring at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. My mother looked confused. As people started finding their seats for dinner, I discovered Diana hadn't been kidding about the seating arrangement. I was at the head table, between James Morrison and one of Marcus's cousins, a doctor named Lisa. Vanessa was at the same table, 3 seats down, and I could feel her eyes on me throughout the first course. My parents were at a different table entirely, with some of Marcus's business associates. "So Jordan," Lisa said as the appetizers arrived, "I hear you're working on satellites. That must be fascinating." "It is," I said, grateful for the opening. "We're designing navigation systems that—" "Jordan's being modest," James interrupted. "She's leading the entire navigation team for what's going to be the largest satellite constellation in Canadian history. When this project goes live, it's going to provide internet access to over 200 remote and northern communities." "That's incredible," Lisa said, her eyes wide. "How did you get into that field?" I found myself telling the story I rarely shared, about how I'd been obsessed with space as a kid, how I'd built model rockets in my backyard, how I'd chosen aerospace engineering because I wanted to be part of something bigger than myself. "Your parents must be so proud," Catherine Morrison said from across the table. The table went quiet. I glanced down at Vanessa, who was staring at her plate. "They've been supportive," I said carefully. Diana Chen, who was seated next to Catherine, gave me a knowing look. "Vanessa mentioned that your parents didn't always understand your career choice." I took a sip of water, buying time. "They had different expectations, I think. They wanted more traditional success markers." "Traditional is overrated," James said firmly. "You know what's not overrated? Actually contributing something meaningful to the world. You're doing that, Jordan. You should be proud." The conversation moved on, but I caught my father's eye from his table. He looked uncomfortable, shifting in his seat. After dinner, as people mingled over coffee and dessert, my mother approached me. "Jordan, honey, why didn't you tell us you were working on something so important?" I looked at her, really looked at her. "I tried, Mom, multiple times. You weren't interested. That's not fair. We've always supported your career. You called it tinkering with machines in a warehouse. Dad said it wasn't glamorous. You've spent years making it clear that what I do doesn't measure up to your standards. We just wanted you to be happy, to be successful. I am successful, Mom. I'm successful by any objective measure. I just wasn't successful in the way you wanted me to be." My father joined us, his expression strained. "Mr. Morrison seems very impressed with your work. He's familiar with the project I'm leading. Perhaps you could have mentioned that you were working on something of this caliber." "I did mention it. You cut me off to talk about Vanessa's wedding invitations." He had the grace to look embarrassed. Vanessa appeared at my elbow, her voice low and angry. "You're making a scene. I'm having a conversation with our parents. You're embarrassing me. All night, people have been asking about you, talking about your work. This is supposed to be about me and Marcus. Vanessa, I said quietly. I didn't ask for any of this. I came because Marcus's mother invited me. I've been perfectly polite and appropriate. If people are interested in what I do, that's not my fault, and it's not something I'm going to apologize for. You could have told them you were just a regular engineer, not made it sound like you're saving the world. I didn't make anything sound like anything. I answered questions honestly. I'm sorry if that bothers you, but I'm not going to diminish my work to make you feel better. Marcus appeared, putting a hand on Vanessa's arm. Vanessa, come on. Let's go thank my parents for hosting. As they walked away, my mother said softly, "She's just stressed about the wedding." No, Mom. She's ashamed of me. She's been ashamed of me for years, and you and Dad encouraged it. You made it clear that what I do isn't good enough, isn't impressive enough, and now you're surprised that people actually respect my work? I excused myself and went to the washroom, needing a moment alone. When I came back out, Diana Chen was waiting in the hallway. "I wanted to apologize," she said. "I didn't mean to create tension with your family." "You didn't create anything," I said. "This has been building for a long time. Vanessa mentioned you might not come to the wedding." I hesitated. "She uninvited me, actually. Earlier this week, she said I didn't fit with the image your family expected." Diana's expression hardened. "I see. That explains some things. Jordan, I need you to understand something. When Marcus first started dating Vanessa, I did my research. I always do. I found out about you, about your work, about your education. I was actually excited to meet you. When Vanessa started making excuses about why you wouldn't be at events, I found it odd. Now I understand. She's not a bad person," I said, feeling oddly defensive. She has different priorities. She's insecure," Diana said bluntly, "and she's making that your problem. But here's the thing, Jordan. You don't need your family's approval. You're doing remarkable work. You're contributing to something that's going to make a real difference in people's lives. That's worth more than any wedding invitation." She excused herself, and I stood alone in the hallway for a moment, processing. When I returned to the dining room, James Morrison found me again. "Jordan, I wanted to mention something before the evening ends. Orion is going to be bidding on the second phase of the Northern Connect project. We're looking for experienced engineers to join our team, people who understand the technical challenges and the mission. Would you be interested in having a conversation about opportunities with us?" My heart raced. "Absolutely. I'd be very interested." "Excellent. I'll have my assistant reach out to you next week. We can set up a proper meeting, discuss specifics." He handed me his business card. "I mean it, Jordan. The work you're doing is exactly what this country needs more of. People who are willing to tackle hard problems for the right reasons." The evening wound down after that. I said my goodbyes, thanked Diana and James, and headed for the door. In the elevator down, I found myself alone with my parents. "That was quite an evening," my father said, his voice carefully neutral. "It was. Mr. Morrison seemed very interested in your work." "He is. His company might be bidding on the next phase of my project." My mother touched my arm. "Jordan, sweetheart, we really are proud of you. We always have been." I looked at her, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel the need to accept the olive branch. "Mom, you uninvited me from family events because you were embarrassed by what I do. You spent years dismissing my career, minimizing my achievements. You let Vanessa uninvite me from her wedding because I wasn't good enough for the image she wanted to project. And now, because someone important validated my work, you want to act like you were supportive all along. That's not fair," my father said. "We've always wanted what's best for you." "No, Dad. You've always wanted what looked best to your friends at the country club. There's a difference." The elevator doors opened onto the lobby, and I stepped out. "Jordan, wait," my mother called. I turned back. "I'm going to go to the wedding. Not because Vanessa wants me there. Not because you think it would look bad if I didn't. I'm going because Marcus and his family treated me with more respect in one evening than you've shown me in 28 years. And I think it's important for me to see that, to remember that my worth isn't determined by your opinion of me." I walked out into the cool Toronto night, got into my car, and drove home. The wedding was 3 weeks later, at the Fairmont Royal York, just as Vanessa had planned. I wore a simple, elegant dress in dove gray, appropriate for a family member but not attention-grabbing. The ceremony was beautiful. Vanessa looked stunning. Marcus looked happy. My parents cried. At the reception, I was seated at a table with some of Marcus's cousins and their partners, people I'd met briefly at the rehearsal dinner. Not the head table, but not relegated to the back corner either. During dinner, James Morrison stopped by the table. "Jordan, I wanted to let you know, we finalized our bid for the Northern Connect expansion. I put your name forward as a potential lead consultant. If we get the contract, I hope you'll consider joining our team." Several people at the table turned to look at me. "That would be incredible," I said. "Thank you. Thank yourself. You earned it." After he walked away, one of Marcus's cousins leaned over. "Did he just offer you a job?" "Potentially. If his company wins the contract they're bidding on." "That's amazing. What is it you do again?" I explained, and found myself in a conversation about satellite technology, about the challenges of providing internet to remote communities, about orbital mechanics and signal latency. Across the room, I could see my parents watching. My mother looked proud, but also confused, like she couldn't quite reconcile this version of me with the daughter she thought she knew. Vanessa, during her rounds of greeting tables, stopped by briefly. "Having fun?" she asked, her voice tight. "I am, actually." "Congratulations again. The wedding is beautiful." "James Morrison mentioned you might be working with Orion." "Possibly. Nothing certain yet." She lowered her voice. "Marcus's family really likes you. They've been very kind. More than kind. Diana keeps telling people about your work. It's like you're the guest of honor, instead of me." I looked at my sister, really looked at her. "Vanessa, I'm sorry if you feel like I'm stealing your spotlight. That was never my intention. I came because I was invited. I answered questions when people asked. That's all. It's always all about you, isn't it?" she hissed. "Even at my wedding." "No," I said calmly. "It's about the fact that I do work that people find interesting. That's not a crime, and it's not something I'm going to apologize for. You wanted a wedding that would impress Marcus's family, and you got it. This is beautiful. Everyone's having a great time. The fact that some people are also interested in talking to me about satellites doesn't diminish any of that." She walked away without responding. Later, during the dancing, Diana Chen found me at the bar. "You look lovely tonight," she said. "Thank you. It's a beautiful wedding." "It is. Vanessa has good taste." She paused. "I wanted to tell you something." After the rehearsal dinner, I had a long conversation with Vanessa about the way she's treated you. I don't think she realized how dismissive she's been, how much she's let your parents' attitude influence her own. "It's okay. We're different people with different priorities." "It's not okay, actually. Families should support each other. They should celebrate each other's successes, not feel threatened by them." Diana looked at me seriously. "You're going to do great things, Jordan. You already are. Don't let anyone make you feel small for that." 6 months later, I accepted a position as lead systems architect at Orion Technologies. The Northern Connect project expanded, and I found myself traveling across Canada, meeting with communities that would benefit from the satellite network we were building. My relationship with my family didn't transform overnight. These things rarely do. But slowly, incrementally, things shifted. My parents started asking actual questions about my work. Not dismissive questions, but genuine ones. They started, tentatively, to express pride. Vanessa and I reached an uneasy truce. We weren't close, but we were civil. At family events, she stopped introducing me as my sister who works with satellites in that vaguely dismissive tone, and started saying, "My sister, the aerospace engineer." It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. The real change, though, was in me. I stopped seeking their validation. I stopped measuring my worth by their approval. I built a life I was proud of, surrounded by people who valued the work I did and the person I was. I stayed in touch with Diana and James Morrison, They became unlikely mentors, people I could call for advice or just to talk through a challenging problem. 2 years after Vanessa's wedding, the first phase of the Northern Connect satellite network went live. I traveled to a small community in Nunavut to be there when they got their first high-speed internet connection. Watching the community members, especially the kids, light up as they connected to the wider world for the first time, I felt something shift inside me. This was why I did what I did. Not for my parents' approval, not to prove anything to Vanessa. For this. For the chance to make a tangible difference in people's lives. My parents flew up for the launch ceremony. It was my father's idea, actually. He'd never been north of Toronto in his life, but he wanted to see what I'd been working on. Standing in that community center, watching my father talk to residents about how the satellite system worked, seeing my mother wipe away tears as a grandmother video called her grandson in Ottawa for the first time, I realized something. They hadn't changed. Not really. They were still the same people who valued appearances and traditional markers of success. But I had changed. I no longer needed them to understand. I no longer needed their validation to know that what I was doing mattered. The lesson I learned, the one I carried with me, was this. Your worth is not determined by other people's ability to see it. Not your family's, not your friends', not anyone's. You can spend your whole life trying to make people understand, trying to make them see you, but at the end of the day, the only person who needs to believe in your worth is you. Some people will dismiss you because what you do doesn't fit their idea of success. Some people will feel threatened by your achievements because it challenges their own choices. Some people, even people who love you, will never fully appreciate what you contribute to the world, and that's okay. Their limitation is not your problem. Build the life you want. Do the work that matters to you. Surround yourself with people who see your value and celebrate your success. And when someone tries to make you feel small, remember that their opinion is just that. An opinion. It doesn't define you, and it doesn't diminish what you've accomplished. You are not worthless because someone says you are. You are not a failure because your success doesn't look the way someone else thinks it should. You are exactly who you're supposed to be, doing exactly what you're meant to do. And sometimes, the greatest victory is not in proving people wrong. It's in realizing you don't need to.